I lied to my husband. Our son is not his. Now he needs a transplant, and his father isn't a match. The first time my son vomited blood, I thought it was something isolated. A scare. But no, that was just the prelude to the hell that was coming. It was Tuesday. He had eaten macaroni and cheese and was playing with his toys on the carpet when I heard him cough. I thought he was choking. I ran toward him and then I saw it, the red vomit, blood splattering his shirt, his trembling body, his broken sobs, and I panicked. The ambulance came quickly. My husband Diego didn't let go of his hand for a single second on the way to the hospital. I kept repeating that he would be fine, that it would be something viral, digestive, nothing serious. But in the ER, the doctor's expression was enough to know I was wrong. After hours of tests, they called us into a private room. I always knew that conversations in those kinds of rooms never bring good news. Your son has severe myelodysplastic syndrome, said the hematologist. He urgently needs a bone marrow transplant. Time is critical. I didn't understand everything, but I understood the essential. Julian was in danger. Real, immediate, brutal danger. They began compatibility tests. First us, the parents, Diego and I gave blood without hesitation. The next day, the doctors came back, this time with a mix of unease and surprise on their faces. We have a problem, one began, holding papers in his hand. Neither of you is compatible with Julian. More concerning is that you, sir, share none of the main genetic markers with the patient. We need to repeat the test, but it's likely there's an error in the affiliation. Diego shot up. What do you mean I don't share anything with my son? What are you implying? I said nothing. The doctors insisted on repeating the tests. They said sometimes there are errors, that it happens, but I knew it wasn't a mistake. I knew from the first second, because there are things a mother cannot forget. And I remembered perfectly that night 9 years ago, the smell of alcohol, the restrained rage, the fight with Diego, his weeks of silence, and I remembered that it wasn't love, it was loneliness, it was a mistake. When I found out I was pregnant, my first thought was to stay silent. Stay silent and move on, silent and pretend everything was fine. Stay silent because Diego had come back repentant, loving. And I wanted that future. I wanted to believe everything could be repaired, and so I did. I married him. We raised Julian as if nothing had happened. And for years it worked, until now. Now I had my son intubated, pale, in a hospital bed. And the only one who could save him might not know, might not care, might not even remember my name. Diego still didn't know anything. He looked at me strangely after the result, but didn't ask. He still trusted me. Still believed me. But that wouldn't last, because the truth was about to come out. And when it did, it wouldn't just destroy my marriage, it could be too late to save my son. That night I didn't sleep. I watched dawn break from the hospital chair while the machines beeped at regular intervals, a cruel metronome marking how little time my son had left. Diego slept with his head against the wall, exhausted. His hands were still stained with dried blood, not his, but Julian's. And I thought of that other man. His name was Andres, a coworker. We weren't close, had barely shared a couple of coffees in the break room, but the night Diego and I fought, the worst fight of our relationship, I felt empty. He left home for almost a month, and during that time I convinced myself it was over. I remember that night the way one remembers a nightmare, fragmented, blurry, illogical. A few drinks, forced laughter, the cold of his apartment, the silence afterward. There was no love, only damage. The next day I left without looking back. We never spoke again. Soon after, Diego came back crying, saying he loved me, that he had been an idiot, that he wanted to try again. I loved him, and I was already pregnant. The easiest option, the cowardly one, was to lie. It's yours, I told him with a trembling smile when we saw the positive test. And he believed me. He hugged me. He cried with joy. He never doubted. For years I was a good mother. I swear, I tried everything. I gave him love, care, boundaries. And every time Julian called me mom, my heart broke a little more. Because that child, innocent, loving, was the result of a night that should never have happened, and at the same time he was the best thing that had ever happened to me. Back to the present, the hematologist came back looking worried. We need to locate Julian's biological father. His genetic compatibility might be the only way to save him. Diego looked confused. What do you mean, biological father? What are you saying? The doctor avoided our eyes. We're just considering all clinical possibilities. If there's another person with genetic ties to the patient, it's vital to find him as soon as possible. Diego turned to me. His eyes weren't furious, they were lost. There's something you're not telling me. I lied again. I don't know. Maybe there was a mistake. Maybe it's technical. I turned away, feigning indignation. I won't tolerate being treated as if we weren't his family. Diego nodded, confused but loyal. Always loyal. And that broke me even more, because he still loved me, and I was seconds away from destroying him. That night, I went home to shower and bring back clean clothes. I stood alone in the kitchen staring at Julian's favorite mug in the sink. I grabbed it with both trembling hands, and decided to look for Andres. I only had a vague idea of where he worked. We hadn't spoken since before Julian was born. I searched his name on social media. I found a photo of his wedding. He had 2 kids, a smiling wife, and a life I was about to touch, though he didn't know it. I opened my inbox. Typed his name. Started writing a message. Deleted it. I went back to the hospital, my heart in my throat. Julian was asleep, but his breathing was heavy. Diego told me the doctors wanted to meet us the next morning. Clearly, their patience was running out. And so was my time. I knew sooner or later I'd have to talk to Diego, to Andres, to myself, but I hadn't yet, because if I told everything, I'd lose it all. And if I stayed silent, I might lose him. And I no longer knew which was worse. The next day, I woke up from the hospital chair with my back broken and my heart worse. Diego still believed me. Still cared for me. He sat beside me as we waited for the doctor and said, "We'll find a solution, no matter what. We're a family." I looked at him and felt disgust, not for him, but for myself, for the lie I hadn't yet spat in his face, for the fear, for the selfishness. After the meeting with the medical team, who basically repeated that genetic compatibility was critical and without a donor Julian wouldn't survive, I made a decision. I had to find Andres. Thanks to a friend in HR, I found him at his new company. Downtown office. Suit and tie. He looked successful, older, more serious, more distant. I waited until he came out for lunch. I approached nervously, my hands cold. When he saw me, he frowned. "Carla," I nodded. And without hesitation, I told him everything. "I need your help. Our son, is dying." He laughed. Thought it was a joke. "What are you talking about?" "That night, 9 years ago. I got pregnant then. I never told you. I thought it didn't matter. But now he needs a transplant, and you could save him." His face turned to stone. "You're crazy. You're just looking for drama. You come with this now, after almost a decade?" "I know. It was a mistake. Everything was a mistake. But my son, Julian, please, just get tested. Nothing more." "And what do I tell my wife? That I slept with you? That I have a hidden child? What do you think will happen to my family?" "My son will die." "That's not my son," he said, and left me talking alone in the street. I returned to the hospital with swollen eyes. Locked myself in the bathroom and vomited. Diego asked if everything was okay. I nodded. Lied again. My life was a catalog of chained lies. That night I wrote to Andres. A long, desperate message. I sent him a picture of Julian. Told him how he played with dinosaurs. How he said he wanted to be an astronaut. I begged him to think like a father, not like a husband. He left me on read. Days passed. Julian worsened. Every time I saw him sleep, I thought, I'm out of cards. I was alone. With my guilt, with my truth. I considered suing him. But how to prove paternity without a test? How to go through that process without dragging Diego into the truth? And then, as if fate wanted to mock me, I got a call. It was Andres. I thought about it. I'll take the test. But if it comes back negative, you disappear from my life forever. Understood? Yes, I replied breathlessly. Just, thank you. I didn't cry. I didn't celebrate. Something in my chest told me it was already too late. I ran to the hospital with the news, but when I arrived, the nurse stopped me at the door. Your son had a relapse. He's being put into an induced coma. What? No, but I found the possible donor. Tell the doctor, they let me in. There was my boy, my Julian, with tubes, with patches, with a face so pale it looked like paper. I sat beside him, held his hand, pressed it to my chest. Forgive me. I don't know if you can hear me, but I swear I'll do everything. Even if I don't know if we're on time. We didn't know for sure, but we all felt it, Julian was slipping away. And I couldn't keep lying anymore. Andres had agreed to testing, but the medical process would take days my son didn't have. So I made a decision. That afternoon, I asked Diego to go down to the hospital cafeteria. We hadn't eaten properly in days. He agreed, though worried. We sat face to face. I couldn't meet his eyes. He spoke first. Did you know anything about the tests? Do you really believe Julian is our son? I looked at him and didn't lie. No. Not this time. Diego, he's not your son. The silence lasted centuries. The sound of cutlery, of hospital machines, disappeared. What? He whispered. Though he already understood everything. I told him everything. The fight, the separation, the night with Andres, my pregnancy, my decision, my silence, my cowardice. I didn't try to justify myself, I just spoke. Barely able to breathe, barely able to lift my eyes. And when I did, he was no longer the same man. For 8 years you made me raise a child that wasn't mine. He is your son in everything but blood. And you think that's nothing? He tried to stand. I grabbed his wrist. He needs your signature for the transplant. You can't abandon him now. And you? When did you plan to sign the truth? People were staring. I didn't care. I love him, Diego. He loves you. Don't do this to him. He looked at me with the coldest eyes I had ever seen and said something I will never forget. I'm not doing anything to him. You did it all. You killed him the day you decided to lie. He left, without looking back. That night he didn't return to the hospital. Nor the next. The doctors told me that without the consent of both registered parents, they couldn't authorize unverified samples. Diego didn't answer calls. And Julian wasn't waking up. My mother-in-law arrived in the morning. She screamed at me in front of the nurses. You lied. You fooled everyone. That child was our blood, and you took him from us. I tried to explain, to beg. You're not his mother. You're just the woman who used him as a shield to sustain her farce. She spat at me as she left. 2 days later, Andres' compatibility result arrived. He was a match. But Julian's body was already too weak. The procedure would be risky, practically useless. The doctors were clear. If he didn't wake in 24 hours, there was nothing more to do. And Diego still hadn't appeared. That night I lay on the hospital floor. Spoke to Julian like when he was a baby. Sang his favorite song. Told him about Mars, about his dinosaurs, about everything we would do when he got out. And then I begged his forgiveness for bringing him into the world on a lie, for giving him a father he loved who might never come back, for believing that hiding the truth was protecting him. The next morning was gray. The doctor came in, looked at me with that hollow compassion they give in hospitals when there's no hope. Julian's heart is failing. We're losing him. I went to him. Caressed his face. Whispered the truth in his ear. You weren't my punishment. You were my miracle. I'm so sorry. So sorry. Then the beat became constant, and the world went dark. The sharp sound of the monitor etched into my soul. No screams. Nothing. Just the certainty that my son was gone. I remember how they pulled me away from the room, not violently, but with pity. The way one removes a broken mother from a lifeless body. A nurse hugged me. I didn't feel it. I don't know how long passed before I found myself sitting in the hallway, staring at my hands. The same hands that fed him. Dressed him. Cared for him. The same hands that hid the truth. The same hands that signed his sentence. Andres arrived an hour later, with a lab envelope in his hand and a pale face. "Where is Julian?" he asked. I didn't answer. I just looked at him, and it was enough. "I'm too late, aren't I?" "Yes," I said. And I didn't hate him, because in the end, he wasn't the executioner. I was. The funeral was muted. Few people. Few words, many accusing eyes. Diego didn't come. Nor his family. No one from the past wanted to share my grief. To them, I was the woman who used a child as an excuse, as a facade. The mother who betrayed, the wife who lied, the guilty one. And they couldn't imagine how much I longed to carry that guilt, because it was mine. Every day I stayed silent, every time I watched Diego play with Julian knowing what I hid, every time my son said, "I love you, Mom," and I responded with a trembling smile. It was all mine. After the burial, I locked myself in at home for weeks. I didn't eat, didn't answer messages, didn't turn on lights. Just walked. Cried. Wrote. One of those letters was for Diego. I never sent it. "Forgive me for making you love someone on a lie. Forgive me for taking away your son without ever telling you. And forgive me for killing the only pure thing we had without ever pulling a trigger. I lied so I wouldn't lose you. And in the end, I lost everything." The divorce papers came by mail. No letter, no note. Just his signature. Fair. I had also signed something years ago, a lie disguised as a promise. I returned to the cemetery every day for a month. Brought flowers, toys, letters I never read aloud. And one day I brought a photo, one of the few of the three of us, Diego, Julian, and me. I left it on the grave, inside a plastic bag, weighed down with a stone. I didn't know if anyone else would ever see it, but I wanted him to have it somewhere in the universe, in a place where love and damage don't contradict each other. I knelt, pressed my forehead to the headstone, and whispered one last time, "Forgive me for giving you so much with so much fear. Forgive me for not saving you in time. That's the only thing I don't have anymore, time, family, identity. Because when you bury your child, you also bury everything you ever were. It's been 3 years since I lost him. I live in another city. Change apartments every 6 months. I don't keep friends. I don't have social media. Not because I have something to hide, but because I have nothing to show anyone anymore. Since his death, my existence has been an echo of what it was. I'm no longer a mother. No longer a wife. I'm a shadow walking among memories I don't want to remember. Sometimes people ask if I have kids, and I lie again. I say no. Because saying I had tears me apart, and saying I have would be another lie. Once, a year ago, Diego wrote to me. It was a brief email. No hatred, no tenderness. Just facts. I couldn't love anyone again. Not because I forgave you, but because I don't want to build anything on the possibility of another lie. I didn't respond. Not because I had no words, but because no word could fix what I did. Andres disappeared from my life. He never wrote again. Never asked about me. Sometimes I wonder if he'll ever tell his kids they had a half-brother, or if he'll pretend Julian never existed. I don't judge him. Some silences are also forms of pain. Every March 12th, I return to that cemetery. Julian's grave is in the corner of the plot. Always in shadow. I like to think that protects him from the sun, though I know he doesn't feel anything anymore. I bring white flowers. Always the same. I bring letters I'll never read. And I light a candle, not to illuminate his rest, but to remind myself I still breathe. This year I left something different. A wooden box. Inside, the 8-week ultrasound, a letter I never gave Diego, and the photo of the three of us. The same one I had left before, only now folded in half, separating Julian from us. Not out of hate, but because that was where he belonged, between two people who loved each other, but who didn't know how to protect him from their past. I don't write this so anyone will understand me, or forgive me. Only to leave testimony that one lie, just one, can give you everything and then take it all away. That some truths hurt less at first than the consequences of keeping them hidden. I am the mother who chose a lie. And for that, I buried my world.